Hey, how's it going? My name is Crystal, and welcome to a new video. Now today I am here recording a review on the book Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel. First half of this book is basically the film Hocus Pocus, but in book form. But from that part, we pick up into part 2, and that is the all-new sequel story. And it takes place 25 years later. We catch up with Max and Allison, and they are now married with a 17-year-old daughter named Poppy, and they live in Salem, and they, I believe, live in Allison's old house. And Poppy has always heard the story of that fateful Halloween night 25 years prior of her parents and her Aunt Danny and all that stuff, and she just never really believed it. She's like, yeah, right, like that happened. Until she winds up encountering the Sanderson sisters herself 25 years later. Max and Allison have always told their daughter the story of that Halloween night in the past, but she's never really believed it, them or her Aunt Danny, about any of it, really. She's just sort of gone along with it for her family's sake. So she's kind of like whatever about Halloween. She just thinks, it's just another night. Like, none of that stuff is real. Witches don't exist. There's no magic. Just whatever. She's very kind of blasé about it. When Poppy and her two friends, Travis and Isabella, wind up accidentally bringing back the Sanderson sisters, that's when the story sort of picks up in the sequel form, and we could sort of go from there. They accidentally do a spell themselves that brings back the Sanderson sisters, but gets rid of Max and Allison and Danny all at once, and it sort of swapped their souls. Poppy's parents and her Aunt Danny wind up in hell, and they sort of swap places with the Sanderson sisters, and it just winds up becoming this crazy adventure on Halloween night, and Poppy has to help the town, otherwise they're all kind of screwed, and the Sanderson sisters are going to bring all kinds of evil and destruction into Salem. Craziness ensues pretty quickly from when we first just encounter Poppy and her friends, trying to just get through Halloween and get through the day, or the night, I should say. But it's a very interesting story. We sort of run around Salem and places in Salem we hadn't encountered in the past. Not a whole lot, at least. And we catch up with characters that we haven't encountered since the first film, like one of the bullies that bullied Max in the original film and took his shoes is now the school principal, Jay, the blonde with long hair, and he tells the story to Poppy at some point, which she didn't really know, that her dad kind of left them, Jay and Ernie, dangling from that scene in the movie in the cages and everything, and Jay doesn't really care for Max or his family or anything along those lines. Like, he doesn't want to have to deal with any of this once it comes up on Halloween all these years later. Now, we do have a little bit more backstory on the Sanderson sisters once they come back. We find out there's actually a fourth Sanderson sister. It turns out they have a fourth sister named Elizabeth, who was the youngest, who tried to be like a good witch and everything and didn't want to basically hurt anybody, but was so, after some time, I believe, burned at the stake. And she is actually a distant ancestor to Poppy's new friend slash crush, Isabella, and Isabella has somehow got a hold of Winifred's spellbook, which has been missing for the past 25 years. No one had seen it or encountered it since that fateful Halloween night in Hocus Pocus. To defeat the Sanderson sisters, they need to find a moonstone, an object that has all this power and is passed down through the Sanderson line. Elizabeth's mother gave it to her basically to safeguard and keep, which she then gave to her husband when she smuggled him and their daughter to safety at one point in the past before she was found and killed as well. The moonstone is an object that basically can wipe out all the evil and all the magic from the Sanderson sisters that they are now wreaking havoc in Salem again, and Elizabeth basically tells them if we get this moonstone, destroy it, it will just take away all of the magic and undo everything and bring everyone back who was accidentally sent to hell. We encounter like this Regina George-esque mean girl who's actually the daughter of Jay, one of the bullies, who's now the principal, and she's kind of like Poppy's enemy at first, but then throughout the story they wind up bonding over the craziness of the night. Throughout the story, Isabella also has figured out she is a distant relative of Elizabeth Sanderson, so that means she has magic in her, and because of that, she can help defeat the Sanderson sisters and get rid of the Moonstone with her newfound powers. But she's not very confident in herself, which I like. Over time and the story goes on, she has to gain that confidence, which I think is pretty cool. The only thing I wish this story had more of is encounter Max and Allison and Danny for a period of time within the new sequel story, but they're not there a whole lot. It's just sort of little moments with them throughout, and it's mostly Poppy and her friend Travis and Isabella, and them running around town trying to basically get help or figure out what to do next. When we get to a certain point in the story, there was one part that made me say, when I was reading it, that I felt this would work better in a maybe movie format. There's like a musical moment. It felt very much like, well, we did this in the original film, let's make sure we add it within the sequel. However, that's my only sort of, there's like little nitpicky things within this new story that I'm like, well, I wasn't a huge fan, but I did wind up liking the story overall, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, because I was wondering how a sequel would work in book form. I gave this book 4 stars for my overall enjoyment of it. I very much enjoyed this new story. It was really, really good. This new story is very fun. If you are a fan of the original film, Hocus Pocus, like I'm a huge fan of it, and I watch it all the time throughout the years, and especially on Halloween. But I think if you want like a sequel with Max and Allison and Danny, they are definitely there. They're present in the story, which I love a lot. I just wish we saw a little bit more of them, but that's just me. Poppy and her friends were really fun and interesting. I'm going to wrap this review up here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys really, really soon.